you so much, Karen. I am grateful to have been invited and to engage in this, what I think is a very important conversation. So thank you in advance to everyone for the time that we'll spend today in talking about our students and how we can best support them as we move forward. So as Karen mentioned in the introduction, I am here to talk about my experience in the college admission world and how I have been working to see younger students and prepare for as they arrive on our campuses. I have to thank, of course, Karen for inviting me this year to be present with you, but also acknowledge that a couple of years ago, our colleague Liz Chabot invited me also for this conference. And unfortunately, the in-person conference was canceled because of the pandemic. And so, as we continue this conversation, the pandemic will weigh heavy on my comments and on the impact of students. I also want to acknowledge Jessica Felipe and Mary Carol Lindblom for their support and assistance as we've gotten ready for this conference. So I use she, her pronouns. I'm originally from upstate New York, so outside of Albany. I saw on the chat coming in that people are from all over, and some of you hail from places where I grew up. I got my undergraduate degree in public relations from the State University of New York at Oswego. Karen mentioned my graduate work. It was done at Ithaca College in our organizational communication, learning and design program. And I began my career in admission right out of college. So I started as an admission counselor in the August of 1994 and right at Ithaca College. So that's over 28 years now in higher education. And dissimilar, potentially from my peers, I have been at only one institution. So I think it's important for me to share that too, as you think about the lens that I come to this work with. I'm not coming from a variety of experiences at different institutions or across the country, although I draw upon that work through professional networks. I very much have an experience that's rooted in the educational experience and who we recruit to attend Ithaca College. That being said, I have in my career read thousands of student applications, visited hundreds of schools across the United States and in over 20 different nations. I've had the absolute pleasure and privilege to be able to recruit students internationally, and so have experienced the world through that perspective as well. In addition, I've coordinated and developed visit programs, scholar programs, supported and led through dramatic industry changes. And I've enjoyed almost every single moment of that. I've learned early on that I thrive in change and seeing things differently. And with that, I believe in higher education and believe that the work that we're doing is really important. And I've borne witness to the ways that education and exposure can change the trajectory of someone's life. So regarding today's work, I enter this work and this discussion from having had both personal as well as professional experiences with primary, secondary, and higher education in the US as not only a student, a parent, a supporter, and also a professional. And I continue to focus on the new learner entering our institutions. And I mentioned I draw upon partnerships and professional organizations across the state and the country. I also am in partnership with Dr. Sean Eversley Bradwell, who's my spouse and thought partner, also faculty member at Ithaca College. We developed several years ago an LLC with a focus of leadership in DEI in education. So in addition to my professional experience in admission, we also do that work and work with a variety of educational organizations. So at the start here, I want to just take a moment and ask from you what you're expecting in this discussion. And you can add that in the chat. I'm curious to know kind of how you came into this space and what are the things you're looking to get out of being here today. So as you put those in the chat, I'm going to continue, but know that it's helpful for me to see kind of where you're at and what you're thinking at this point. Thank you very much, Karen. So I was invited to engage about students entering our institutions, their demographics, their experiences, and their expectations. Essentially, the way I interpret it is to share what I and my team see and are learning on the ground as we interact primarily with secondary school students, and acknowledging that we are all certainly adjusting. This is a kind of build it as you go type of situation. Never has time in my lifetime moved so quickly than it has in the last 2 years. And so we're working the best we can, all of us, to adjust. To give you some context of kind of the scope of the contact that we have with students, Ithaca College averages about 13,000 undergraduate applications annually. We evaluate applications holistically, and so that means that we're reading the essays that students are submitting, and we're gleaning a great deal from that information that they provide to us. We are asking for letters of recommendation from school counselors, but also those individuals that know students well. And so we get a great deal of information from that as well. We also maintain a secondary school database and connections, ongoing connections with school counselors. And so, over the course, certainly of the last 30 years, but in particular, the last couple of years, this is where we draw a lot of information about how students are experiencing the world and their education. In addition, we also engage directly with students and their parents and supporters, thousands of them, through the college search process. So through on-campus visits, individual appointments, school visits, college fairs, et cetera. And then, of course, we draw upon, and I alluded to this a little bit earlier, but our professional partnerships. So naming just a couple, certainly our National Professional Organization, the National Association of College Admission Counseling, which provides a great deal of research and leadership for those of us in this field. Ithaca College in particular partners with Human Capital Research Corporation. One of the projects that we work on and we're getting geared up for right now is an admitted student review or survey. So every student that's accepted to Ithaca College will receive a survey that asks them questions about the college search process. It'll ask them questions about the pandemic and how it impacted their academics as well as their intentions to go to college. And Human Capital that we partner with works with a number of different colleges and universities. So they bring all of this information together to better inform us on how to communicate with, work with, and inspire college-going students. And then others, of course, we work with marketing partners, those that build platforms for us like Student Bridge, or even some of you may be familiar with Naviance, a platform that many secondary schools use to help support the college search process. So giving you kind of a high level 30,000 foot view, kind of how we get to this information and access meeting students where they are. And thank you so much. I'm seeing in the chat, this is great, about what it is that you're looking to get from the session and thinking about. So today's focus will be on who is this generation of learner. So I'll go through some of the things that I've observed and also what's national research is saying about who these students are. I'm focusing today's discussion mainly on secondary school students, although it's certainly relevant for us to look even further back. And so to younger students as we think about them coming through and into our organizations. I also want to spend some time talking about the success portion of what Karen asked me to cover. So one of the asks was, Nicole, can you talk about how we can be more successful? And so to me, one of those ways to do that or a recipe for that is to put students at the center of our work. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then finally, I do want to spend some time covering what are some best practices. and have an opportunity for us to share and explore on that a little bit. So some working assumptions. I was so appreciative at the top here, sharing information about expectations for conference participants. I'm a huge believer in setting expectations, and so we can all be guided by that. So I want to just mention you're free to move about the cabin. I know even in person, this would be something that I share. I want everyone certainly to be tuned in and engaged. And at the same time, I know that lots of things are happening. So do what you need to do to take care of yourself. I want to establish context for this generation of learners. And so as we go on, I want to build out some different ideas and things that I'm either working on or thinking about. And I thought it would be relevant to share in this discussion today. And then finally, I'm always committed to being a lifelong learner and learning something new. And so I also would ask if you agree to that, to be open today to learning something new. And I want you to know that I don't see this keynote as just a sit and get, as I would refer to it, but also an opportunity to be a bit of a working session. So I will take advantage of the chat and the Q&A feature to ask you to share information so that we can continue to learn from one another. I'm happy to facilitate the discussion, but also want to have engagement and participation where we can. So that being said, let's start again with some additional items in the chat. So what impact is this new generation of student having on your work? What are some of the things that you've observed in the last 2 years? How they're coming into our spaces, the way in which they engage with us, how has it impacted what you're doing? So we were already engaged in some remote work, but now we can do that full-time whenever we need to. Absolutely true. And I think with much more dexterity and flexibility and an ability to pivot to this, and everyone has a common understanding for the most part, which we didn't see necessarily before. All right, great. So these are some additional things about the impact that this generation is having. Right, more online interaction and less in person and face to face. And I would say that's true not just of this generation, but of each other. Right, a lot of us have missed that interaction with one another. And even if you think about our faces being covered, the interaction has changed even when we are in person. Excellent. Some great ideas here about how this generation is impacting our work. So, I acknowledge I've been doing this work a long time. When I was originally asked to talk with you, it was ostensibly about Generation Z. And there's been a great deal of research and relevant information that's available about this generation. And we're morphing into now a different generation, and the COVID generation. And there's no denying the impact that this is having on people who are coming of age now, but also certainly on all of us. There are so many sources, and we're in the midst of it. So as we go along, I think it's important to, certainly look at research and consider that. And then also, what are the other ways that we can continue to gather information to help support our work? So I always think, don't forget that we are resources ourselves. So I'm curious about how many of you have a 16-year-old or younger in your life. And so you have primary source data. And what would you say about this person, and maybe some general characteristics about how they're navigating the world, or how the world is impacting them? One of my favorite activities each year in admission is to gather our employees across campus who have just completed the college search process with their student. Some of their students will have applied to Ithaca College and accepted and are enrolling, and many others, Ithaca College may have been on their list or not on their list. And it doesn't matter to me. I'm most interested in joining with my colleagues who have this kind of firsthand knowledge of experiencing the college search process with their student. I treat them to lunch as a group and ask some questions about their experience. And this has been very beneficial to me over the years so that I can gain insight about what's happening and how we might make modifications to help do our work better and support students in the process. In addition, our team has leaned very heavily on the advice and knowledge of our school counselor advisory board over the years. So it gathered some of my professional friends and colleagues to work with us and share with us in a kind of structured and regular way about what they're seeing on the ground. So I say this to say, I think that the research is really important that's happening across the nation, but so are our contacts and working on building these relationships to understand what's happening. So yes, I see several are sharing information about their own young people in their lives and the impact that they're having and what they're observing. Don't dismiss this information as you're making decisions about your work. This can be really valuable insight that can help guide you. So that being said, to prepare for today, I reached out to some friends and colleagues across the nation who are in the proximity of our new learners, either professionally or personally. And I asked them a set of 6 questions about this generation and wanted to share with you some of the information that I collected. So I'm just going to share a series of 3 questions right now and the insights that they shared. And I think for this first one, what is this cohort most concerned about? I don't think any of these answers would come as a surprise to you. But what's really important, I think, is what we do with this information to be more accessible and student-centered. So an example in the work that I do. So on this list is affording college, and that hits directly near home for me as a director of admission. And so this year at IC, I'm really proud to share an example of what we did to address this. So we understand that this is a concern. It's a leading concern for young people and for their families. And so we decided to create an IC, Ithaca College, 4-year financial forecast, which we've introduced to those students who are joining us for the fall of 2022. And what that is providing students and families information 4 years out upfront about what the cost of attendance will be. We created a new and much more robust financial package that describes what's happening in terms of the students' cost, what's being funded by the institution, what additional assistance they might be receiving, payment plans, things like that to assist students in understanding the total picture. Part of this financial forecast, we also were able to work with our board of trustees to say, we're going to put a cap on the increase of the subsequent 4 years. And so we could then share with families, this is what we expect the cost will be, and there won't be any surprises. You can plan now for what will happen in the future. Final part of this concept was also to invite all of our accepted students to have personal conversations with our professional student financial services staff. And that allows them to help get support in navigating this process. I know that students are applying to likely 10 or more colleges and universities. It's a huge sea of information to consider. Each of us does our financial packaging and awarding differently. It is overwhelming. And so we felt it was really important to have this opportunity for students to be able to connect directly with professional staff to understand what's happening. I give all this as an example to say, we looked at one of these, what are you most concerned about? Affording college. And so we worked out a process to try to communicate that affordability in a different way to meet students and families where they are. So here's the second question I asked my friends and professional colleagues. What will this cohort need to be successful? So again, these are the responses that came back. Some of them would be consistent if you asked anybody, what would you need to be successful? Confidence is a great thing, certainly to be engaged in the process. A question I have for you is, how can our library support students in being successful? So looking at some of these responses, how can you match this with the services that you're offering or the engagement that you're offering to help support students being successful? I'm already seeing, later I'm going to ask too for you to share on best practices and things like that, but I don't want you to miss some of the things that are being posted in here, because several of you have already started to get to that place and sharing ideas. I think that is wonderful. The third question that I'm going to share with you today is, what brings this cohort joy? The pain and trauma are critical and real. So I'm not dismissing that in any way or attempting to minimize what our students or our communities have experienced. At the same time, I think it is critical that we find support and encourage joy in any possible way that we can. And these responses probably don't come as a surprise either, in terms of being respected, being heard, that this cohort is interested in that. I'm interested in that too, as I'm sure you are as well. So the question I would pose in thinking about this concept is, what are our libraries doing to support joy? Where can we see that in the support services that we're offering or the access that we're providing? Where is joy? Llama therapy visits, that is incredible and awesome. I grew up on a farm and we had a llama, and I can definitely attest to having that be a wonderful, wonderful experience. So an example in my work in terms of kind of leaning into that joy. So we returned to campus this spring for on-campus accepted student programs. We haven't run those programs for accepted students since 2019. We were anxious and nervous about it, but we have done several of them, and the feedback that we've gotten from students and families has just been overwhelming. It was truly joyful for them to be on campus, to take a look for themselves if this would be a place that they could see themselves attending. Part of leaning into that is we knew too that people were going to be, we are anxious about it, but we knew that our visitors would be anxious about coming together in large groups. We just hosted 1,500 visitors over the course of 2 days last week. And so we brought our lawn games and technology. So we had the sandbag toss, Jenga, the Bop It and things like that, so that these could be vehicles for the families to exchange in with us and connect with us, but also with one another. And so providing kind of these tools to help lead into that joy aspect and that social connection. We also used Kahoot with several different groupings over the different accepted student programs. And so that's an online tool that allows for kind of surveying, fun music, and engagement. And that was a hit as well, and helped support people being excited and having fun during this time, which can be absolutely stressful. So we're defining this generation of learner. This is what we're talking about. And you're putting great things in the chat in terms of what you've observed from your personal experiences. These that I'm sharing are generally agreed upon definitions or characteristics of this generation. These lists, of course, are informative, and all you have to do is Google and you get all kinds of lists. And I always benefit when I look at these lists from also drawing on the connection to the work that I do. So not just saying digitally social, but what does that really mean? And can I draw on examples that help me understand and then help me to navigate and support students in the best way? So these learners are digitally social and connected. Over 53% of our youth own a smartphone. And by youth, I mean, 10, 11 years old. So what I would consider very young people have these very powerful tools in their pockets, and they are able to navigate them with great ease. They have an ability and a power to share opinions and influence people at a distance, to question authority in new ways. And these types of experience then shape their values and behaviors. So think about kind of ground swelling moments around just a few words like hashtag Me Too, hashtag Black Lives Matter, hashtag Justice for George Floyd. This is certainly a different place than I was at when I was their age, and the ability to navigate and connect with the world this way. This generation definitely believes in the power of individuals to create change. So there's an agency there that we might not have seen in the past. They're certainly tech savvy, and they have really no choice but to do so. Businesses have figured this out and are trying to build client bases with the apps that they create and the ways in which they're gathering information and then kind of serving up information to us as well. Many of the apps that we have access to and young people have access to are free. So it's just as easy just to download it and kind of get started. I use this example because I don't know if everyone is familiar, but these are just apps I have on my phone. And when you look at the kind of the app store and it gives you the high level information, you'll see here I've circled on the YouTube app 17 plus. And so that's an indication that this is an app that's available for those who are 17 and older. The primary reason for it being 17 really is the content, unless the navigation of the app. If you look at all of the other apps that I've posted here, familiar ones to you, potentially Netflix, Uber, Venmo, 4 and above. So these apps are created for very young learners. Now, I don't think at all that there are likely a lot of 4-year-olds who are ordering from Uber Eats and that sort of thing, but these apps are created for them to be able to navigate very easily and integrate this into their lives. Now, a much more low-tech way of doing this, I have a 7-year-old at home, and every time I go to Trader Joe's, the cashier gives them a set of stickers. I'm sure this has an influence on the 7-year-old who will likely become a Trader Joe shopper because they remember fondly going in there and getting gifts. But so this is a little, high-tech way that the apps are engaging our young people. They are entrepreneurs and multitaskers. So throughout most of my career, I've encountered applicants who had started businesses in high school. It may have been in like small lawn care businesses or childcare businesses, and then they largely would take a break when they went to college. In 2017, I remember I was at an accepted student program, and a student came up, very excited to be accepted, and introduced themselves and said, "I have one question for you. Do you have storage on campus?" And I said, "Well, I just assumed very quickly, well, this student must be from California or, somewhere far away. And so they're looking to understand if there's storage for them to store their things over winter or summer break." So I asked the student, "Where are you from?" And they responded, "Pennsylvania." And so I thought, oh my gosh, why do we need to store stuff? What's happening? Before I answer if we have storage, what are you storing? And the student shared with me that they had their own t-shirt business and that they planned on continuing that business while they were at college, and they needed a place to store all of their wares, their t-shirts that they were selling. And so I thought at that moment, I was like, wow, we need to rethink this and think about opportunities for students to come and continue to, and we'll talk a little bit about this later, but bring their entire selves. And so if students have businesses and they want to do them while they're at college, what are we doing as an institution to support that. So fast forward to now, and we're leaning into this new learner. So I have here sorry, I'm skipping through very quickly. I have here Olivia Carpenter, who is a senior now at Ithaca College and has started her own cookie business, Via's Cookies. So for our admitted student programs that I just mentioned, I authorized purchase of hundreds of her cookies for the program that we could give to admitted students, and asked Olivia to be present to introduce herself and speak with them and talk about her experience as a student and as an entrepreneur, and how she started a business and was able to do both things at once while she was a college, or while she was a student at IC. So we're seeing students now who are coming to our campus as established clothing designers and social media influencers. They are isolated and defined, of course, by the pandemic. So I mentioned our devices, of course, connect us to the world. And at the very same time, they allow us to see and lean into what we want to see and expect. So all of these apps and everything are learning from us, and they are very much curating content for us. So you don't have to look further than your Netflix account or other streaming account to see this. I know from my own experience with Netflix, I now, most of the programming that I see the picture for, it shows people of color, regardless of what the topic or subject is. And even if the leading characters of the show or movie are not people of color, they've figured out that the picture that I would like to see and that resonates with me and that more likely gets a click from me is a person of color. And I didn't necessarily understand that was happening until I went and saw a friend's Netflix account and was like, oh my gosh, you see a whole different world than what I see. And so, yes, we're connected. And at the same time, in many ways, that connection is very curated. So I read from an essay this season that really resonated with me. And some of the things that the student mentioned in terms of that being isolated and their life being defined by the pandemic, I think they said it better than I could ever say it. And so I wanted to share it with you. And so if you don't mind, I'm just going to read through a portion of what the student submitted. So going through high school, where I spent most of the time at home struggling to adjust and communicate, must be one of the hardest things. Must be one of the most challenging things I have ever dealt with. I feel so disconnected from everything, especially school, and that makes the motivation to focus on academics all the harder. Having coronavirus and being so behind on everything was extremely overwhelming. I want to be impressive and to pass with nothing but my best work, but unfortunately, that has not been possible. I feel disappointed in myself and angry at what the coronavirus has taken from me. I have learned how to accept the unacceptable and overcome every trial. So there's some positivity there, which I'm thankful for. And at the same time, the student, I think, is very clearly articulating their academic experience and how it's helped to shape how they're seeing themselves and the world. So thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share this. I just thought that the student did a great job of articulating how they're feeling. All right, so we've generally defined this learner. So we've talked about the general characteristics. I've asked you to think a little bit about your own personal experiences with young people and what you've observed and can contribute to the conversation. But now I want to spend a little time thinking about how we can put students at the center of our work. This is a graphic that I've used several times, and I've adapted it from Salesforce. I went to a Salesforce conference several years ago and just thought this was just a neat thing, and it helped me kind of understand and continues to help me center my work. And for me, it's about perspective and position. So everyone loves a Heinz 57 moment, right? So I remember when I was a kid, we didn't have Heinz at home, but when we got to go out to a restaurant, you might have it. It was always exciting to get the glass Heinz bottle. And I can even still feel it in my hands now, kind of weighty at the bottom, cool bottle, and a cool to the touch. And I'm excited to get access to the nectar of the gods, this condiment that is going to make my French fries and other things much more palatable. So, you get it, you shake it, nothing comes out. You look in the bottle, is there ketchup in there? Yes. You might shake it again. You tap the 57 because that's supposed to help you get the exact amount that you want. Still nothing. Then you grab a knife and you stick it into the neck of the bottle, and all of a sudden you have more ketchup than you wanted or need all over the place. And when I think about that in our traditional structures in many of our organizations, they served a very particular purpose and a structure, and it makes all good sense. And it might not always make sense for everyone. So now fast forward to the new Heinz dispenser, where we've kind of reoriented everything. There were some changes made to the ketchup to make sure that it would flow from this direction. But now we're in a position with a different vessel that we're able to squeeze the container and get the exact amount of the nectar of the gods that we are interested in, our condiment on our food. And so everyone does love a Heinz 57 moment, but then also you think about it, do we though? So are there opportunities for us to kind of change the perspective and the perspective and think about delivering our services in new and different ways? So here's the point, and some of you had put some of these things in the chat before that related to this, but as you're thinking about putting students at the center of your work, what are some examples that you have where you've made that decision and you're like, oh yes, right, students are at the center, and this is how we've done it? Please put them in the chat. It's true, David, both approaches still deliver ketchup. Very important to note. All right, so continue to think about what it means to put students at the center. Part of putting students at the center of our work is also acknowledging that we need to provide space for our students to bring their whole selves to our campuses, to our libraries, and to the work that they're doing. And so another good question as you're thinking about students at the center is, are we providing the space for students to bring their whole selves? This is a graphic that I am sharing that I didn't create, but I think for me, it's a good visual of all of the different components of someone that they're bringing into this space, and how are we thinking about and identifying that. And great, thank you for the examples that we're putting into about putting students at the center. So as we continue, and just a couple more comments before I open it up for more general questions, I want you to continue to share what some of the best practices are that you've engaged in the library. And so certainly over time, but then are there specific things that have happened in the last couple of years where you felt like you've really hit your stride in offering services, programs, support for students? Again, I feel strongly that excellent work is happening all around us. So I, by no means, I said early on, I'd like to facilitate and engage in the conversation, but I know that many of us are engaged in this work and have great information to share. And so I encourage you too to continue to have these conversations and dialogue across our different organizations as we move forward. All right, so finally, I would just share some of these suggested best practices. So I kind of boiled down some of the things that we've been discussing. Certainly to continue to put students at the center of your work. Another way to think about this is not only thinking about students bringing their whole selves, but also us as leaders in our organizations modeling lifelong learning and the willingness to learn from our students and from others. And so continuing to have that dialogue and openness. Continue to explore our personal beliefs, attitudes, and knowledge, and address those things. And we have those that we've been talking about. We've been talking about sexism and racism and ability and things like that. And now we have a whole new layer to put on top of that in terms of the ways in which the COVID virus is impacting our lives and the ways in which we interact with one another and the assumptions we make. And so continue to, again, it's kind of like lifelong learning, but address those things and how you're interacting and engaging, and then building programs and services. Maintain and get engagement with community, expect wider engagement. I always like the college, kind of the residential college landscape as an example of this. I encourage our team to go to the music concerts, go to the athletic events. We have admission hosts who are students who work in our office. There's nothing like connecting with them in the places that they do the things that they love doing. And that helps us all to be better. So engaging in the community. In this time, it's been really difficult with, moving a lot of things online, but continuing to have that energy to engage with one another. Use data to inform decisions. So I mentioned research and things like that, but also know that you can call upon your own senses and experiences, as well as the connections that you have. And then finally, I would just offer to say, move from talk to systemic action. There's not going to be one thing that fixes all of the challenges, but really looking at it as a strategy and a way to pull things together to improve and to continue to support students where they are. So today we talked about who is this generation of learner. And so I hope I was able to cast some kind of wide nets, but some specifics in some areas in terms of the characteristics of particularly secondary school students and what they may be bringing into our spaces. Talked a little bit about how we can put students at the center of our work and how that will help us to be successful and our students to be successful. And then finally, just some talk about best practices. So I'm curious, as we close here, or as I close my portion of kind of the presentation aspect, what are the things that you're curious about? What are questions that you have? There is the Q&A feature, so I'd ask now if you have questions to put them in the Q&A, and we can continue to use the chat to share information with one another about best practices and different ideas. So thank you for allowing me to pause and get a drink there too. I'm going back through the chat to see if there's some areas that we can further explore as well. There's lots of good ideas that were posted about programming around different identities. So I'm seeing, like from Catherine, our veteran students really appreciate an opportunity to talk about their experiences. It reminds me a little bit, Catherine, I didn't share in the essay that I read a portion of, part of what the student also shared was that they didn't feel like there were spaces where they could talk about coronavirus and how it's impacted them. And so creating those spaces about any, plethora of topics can be very empowering for people and identifying that there are places where you can have these conversations. Right, and collaborations with faculty and others across campus, I think is a good idea and essential. Another conversation, of course, I think that many of us are a part of is how to support students' mental health and physical well-being. These numbers were really spiking before the pandemic already in the college age population. And now with the pandemic, of course, we're seeing it across every demographic, but for college age students, the level of support just needs to be ramped up significantly. And so I think both short-term and long-term, part of the success there will be those connections across different offices and departments that help support students. So again, if there's a question that you want to pose, you can put it in the Q&A feature. And then I'm loving the comments that are here about sharing ideas and work that you're doing. You can continue to do that there.
Everybody was so active in the chat. Now they're quiet for the Q&A.
I know it. I flipped the script and now either that or just I was just so succinct and clear. There can be no questions or no areas of further investigation. No, that's not true.
Yes, you gave us clarity, full clarity.
So in terms of continuing the conversation, I'm going to just share my contact information here as well. So I am serious about having these conversations and sharing knowledge and collaborating about our young learners and what they're seeing, what they need, how we can support them. And so please don't hesitate to be in touch with me if you'd like to continue the conversation. Always open. And if you're comfortable, you want to buy me lunch and come to Ithaca, I'd be happy to do that. But in seriousness, really, I think the important part is continuing the conversation and engaging with one another. I'm also going to put my in the chat so everyone, so you don't have to, you can take a screenshot certainly, but I'm going to put my email address. So you can just copy and paste that also if that's easier.
Great. Thank you so much, Nicole.
You're most welcome.
Next up, we're going to have Deb Bowder from SUNY Oswego, who will be moderating our student panel discussion on perspectives on libraries, college, and life. So stick around a moment and give me a minute to promote our students to panelists. And thanks again, Nicole.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Good morning to our students and good morning, Deb. We'll let you take it away.
Good morning. Hi, everyone. My name is Deborah Bowder. I'm Research, Instruction, and Outreach Librarian at SUNY Oswego's Penfield Library. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm really super excited to be joined here today by a panel of 3 students who have come and have agreed to come and share their perspectives and their opinions with us. So Rochelle, Jaylee, and Anna, welcome. I'm super excited that you're here. We're all super excited that you're here. So can you please introduce yourselves, tell us what school you're studying at, your major and year, and anything else you want to let people know about your connection to the library. Jaylee, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Jaylee Ransom. I'm a communication major, so I'm studying at SUNY Oswego's School of Communication, Media, and the Arts. And I'm also a library ambassador for Penfield Library.
Rochelle.
Hi, good morning. My name is Rochelle. I am a junior at SUNY Oswego. I'm also a transfer student. I'm a public relations major and I work as a peer reference assistant in the library.
Thank you. And Anna?
Hi, I'm Anna. I am a junior cinema photo major with a concentration in photo at college, and I am currently a student manager at the library.
Thank you. It's so nice to have all 3 of you here. So as you all know, but I'm telling everybody else too, so the purpose of this panel is to provide the academic librarians and everyone else that's here the opportunity to hear directly from you and get some insight on current student perspectives on colleges, on libraries, and life in general. I think I saw all 3 of you were at Nicole's Everly Brown's speech. So hopefully you'll have some thoughts on that or comments on that as well. And this is also an opportunity for you. You have this active and engaged audience of librarians here who care what you think. So tell us what you think and, feel free to be honest. And, if there's a question that you feel like you can't answer or you're not comfortable answering, please, you can feel free to say pass. I sent you all the list of questions a few days ago, so that's kind of what we're going to use to guide this conversation over the next 45 minutes or so. And if there's time at the end, we'll hopefully be able to take some questions from people who are watching too. So anyone who does have questions, please put them in the Q&A. And if we have time, we'll jump in and grab them. So before we started, I know all three of you were just at our keynote speaker presentation, and I kind of thought it would be interesting to jump right in and have you also weigh in on what are you most concerned about? Do you agree with what was presented, or do you have any comments on what you're most concerned about generationally or just about life? Does anyone want to take that question? Jaylee?
Answer. For me, I think, when we're talking about like Gen Z and Gen Alpha and like how they're really digitally savvy and stuff like that, and like also the impact that COVID had on our generation is still having. It's like a lot of us, like, we use social media as an escape from like, the worries about COVID and stuff like that. And I feel like having these candid conversations with people our age and to see like adults are actually interested in how COVID has impacted our learning is like really refreshing, because it just seems like everyone just moved past the 2 years of the pandemic and not consider like how student learners were affected. So yeah, I think it was nice having this conversation and knowing that you guys are actually interested in our academic success.
Jaylee, you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. I think it was nice to hear, the aim at like the student-centered approach and also the metaphor with the ketchup bottle, because COVID was super hard. And it's nice to be able to see that, we are the generation that's more using the internet and electronics. So to see that people are actively trying to see how to engage with us best has been really helpful.
Anna, do you want to have anything additional for that question?
Yeah, also like keeping the library open, like taking those extra precautions, like still having us be able to like use it for other students. So taking that effort, I think, had a big impact and is really appreciated.
Okay. So sort of along that same vein, what do you think your generation is struggling with the most?
I think personally, from what I've seen with myself and my friends, is sometimes feeling like we don't necessarily have enough support, or that it's hard because we feel like we're doing everything right. But, a lot of this generation, excuse me, and millennials, it's like, okay, well, we're not making enough money to buy homes or upgrade where we live, or have the like necessities to relocate because we want to. And it's like a lot of us feel stuck, I believe, and that there's nothing we feel like is helping us or that we can do. So I think that's been the biggest struggle, is there's kind of like well, why should I keep doing this if I feel like there's not a payout because of what's going on in the world right now?
Yeah, I think like what you're saying is really truthful, because like I considered coming to college and it's like, I'm gonna go into debt. Is it gonna be worth it? Because I still need to study about like life after college. But I think for my friends and like my peers, the people that I'm close with, I guess they feel like if there aren't enough resources or they're scared to reach out. So sometimes my friends are literally, and I'm like, they literally feel so defeated because they aren't willing or they're scared to ask for help or reach out to the resources that's on campus. And then it kind of just keeps on spiraling. You need help, you don't reach out. And then before you know it, you're on academic probation. And, it can be prevented. But I feel like a lot of us are scared to ask for help or just aren't sure how to approach, who to ask, and stuff like that.
Yeah, 100% agree with what was said. I've noticed a lot of like, not miscommunication, but like people being nervous to ask questions, and you just have to be the one to go up and say like, "Hi, I overheard that you need some help. I'll be happy to help you." So like, trying to improve that is something that can be done for our generation.
So that's good to know. So is that something, obviously that's something that makes you feel supported? What else makes you feel supported? I'm hearing your stress and the things that you're struggling with. What makes you feel supported on campus or in the library?
I would say it's the effort, which I spoke about with the previous presentation, but as also working on campus and the Compass and the Excel office, and as a library ambassador, I can see, faculty and staff trying their best to, put an effort to find ways to kind of advertise, I guess, the services that are offered. I know we've taken more into like thinking about social media or sending more emails or even just putting eye-catching flyers around campus. So I know it's the effort because as Rochelle said, students don't know or are scared to ask or don't know where to go. So, it might be extra work for faculty and staff to kind of keep putting out information, but I honestly do think it's helping a lot.
Anna, you agree with that? You're nodding.
Yeah, promoting like services is like really helpful. Because I know here at the college library, we have like little like stands to tell you like who's in the office during the day. And we also have like hours and like other like where to find these shelves and stuff like that. So like having stuff labeled and promoting them, I think is a huge help for students.
I think I feel supported when when I receive reassurance from like professors or when professors and like other faculty are willing to work with students. We are all like, even though we're all student learners or whatever, we all like bring our own individual way of like accepting of like being a student. And sometimes I have a couple of professors that have flexible deadlines or are willing to negotiate assignments. They give assignments that reward you for the work that you do outside of class. And I think that's like a really good way to not necessarily make learning a strict inside of the classroom like idea. And then you feel like, oh, what I'm doing outside of the classroom is being rewarded. And it allows you to like bring your whole self to learning and to, I guess learning. Yeah.
To add to that, to bring it back to the library aspect, I would say I really like the research parties that Penfield Library at SUNY Oswego throws. Even though I think the first one I went to, there wasn't a large turnout, it was still the fact that it was being offered in a sense that's like, okay, we know college students are hungry or want to interact with others. So then they provide food and a space for all of us to just kind of sit together. And whether it be like to help each other with homework or even to complain, it's nice to be able to have these spaces where we can just kind of communicate with other students. And that's honestly where I met a few of my friends, was at a library research party.
That's great to hear. That's great to hear. We definitely like throwing them. And I do think they're super useful, but it's always good to hear from you guys. So speaking about social media, how do you feel about social media in general in terms of its impact on your generation? Do you think it's useful? Is it stressful? Is it?
Yeah, actually for my meditation class, we had a project of a media breaks. We had to take 3 hours to not be on technology. And what I've noticed is that I use technology like 24/7 during my day for what I'm doing for master co-curriculars. So like I think social media is like in technology in general has a huge impact. So if we can take time to not use it, we can see like a huge difference in how it impacts our lives and like our social life. Yeah.
Yeah, I really agree with like taking breaks. And for me, I work in public relations and I enjoy using social media and like creating social media content. But I feel like a really good way to like, if you're not willing to take breaks, is to kind of like diversify what you're using social media for. So it's like you can still watch YouTube and let it be educational, like interesting videos that can benefit your learning and stuff. And for me, I think coming of age with social media is difficult because everything is online. Like we can't be we can't recklessly use social media. And it's like, because there's like real repercussions for doing that. And I think that's like one downside that I just don't like, because you never know when someone is going to post you or something is going to go viral on social media. And it's like, you really need to use it carefully, but also you can use it for entertainment, for education. It doesn't have to be constantly, consuming social media in the sense that it's detrimental.
Yeah, I would agree with both sides. I think social media can be a double-edged sword. I know, especially for our campus, I really do enjoy that a lot of our departments, including the library, have accounts. Considering during my breaks, I check my social media sometimes, especially Instagram. It's nice to be able to see, different departments posting like, oh, come to this part of the campus and you can get a free shirt. That was on, I think, Tuesday. They put on It's on Us. You can get free t-shirts. And a lot of the campus organizations also advertise what events they're having on the social media, which I think can be very helpful, because word of mouth doesn't necessarily work as much anymore because people are talking less, especially with now masks being recommended on campus again. So being able to see all these events or resources on social media is very helpful.
Deb, I don't know if this is where you were headed next, but there's a question in the Q&A about whether or not students are interested in engaging with their library on social media platforms, and if so, what their preferences might be and what type of content they might like to see.
It's a good question.
I would say based on, one second, let me look at it again, but like what platform I think is best. I would say Instagram. I think I engage on that the most when it comes to like student departments or the library. I know our library has an Instagram account that we're trying to actively use more now with students. And I would say that's what I would use the most. I don't really use Facebook as much anymore. Snapchat's more pictures only, but I think Instagram can make use of pictures and information pretty well.
I agree.
Yeah. Oh,
You
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I agree with Instagram. Instagram allows you to do a lot more interactive things like a Q&A or like polls and stuff like that. So like even like doing little cute little things like you prefer sunset or sunrise, doing like those kind of things that have different interactions between students, even though they don't know like who is answering the questions, you still see the interactions like, oh. So also like having like options of like questions about the library, like do you prefer this or this at the library, or would you just like to see this or this? So getting those interactions.
For me, I think the best platform would be Instagram. I think like organizations on TikTok and other platforms are pretty cringy. So as someone my age, I think Instagram is the best route. And stuff I would probably like to see is content that is like opportunities for students to actually come to the library and engage in the library, because I think people just necessarily don't come. Like they know it's there, it's a resource, but they don't use it. So maybe if it's something like, oh, can you correct this citation using a library guide, and come and you have a librarian check it, and something that's rewarding that they would want to engage in, even if it's like a $5 gift card, you still get people willing to do the research, willing to build the skills, but you don't make it Instagram like completely boring with just, this is at the library, or come now. Like you give people an actual reason and you're still helping them build research skills that they can use throughout their college career. I think I wouldn't mind seeing that.
I definitely recommend polls. I know for the organization that I run, we do a lot of polls on our Instagram. People are very competitive, and it's nice to see like, who's voting for what. We did like one at Christmas time, and it was like, I think eggnog versus hot cocoa. And it's something really simple, but it brought out like the biggest debate. So like library wise, if you were to do like a poll, like messing around, that was like APA citations versus MLA citation. And, people are going to start interacting because it's like, I want to see who's agreeing with me. And like, everyone's like, oh, I'm right. Like, so just simple things like that are like, seem really like small, but to like students our age, especially on social media, it's like, we want to see, who's siding with what.
So this is super helpful for me. I'm sure it is for everybody else too. So, sort of turning now to thinking about your campus libraries, because we started talking about it now more specifically, what library services or resources do you find that you use the most?
I know for Ithaca, a lot of times the Ithaca College library website I reference a lot. That's how I like help patrons. Like they ask, how do I find this book? And I help them find the book. And I also show them to go to our website, you type in the name of the book or author. So like our website is like probably the most useful resource that I use.
Yeah, I would agree with the website for Penfield Library. A lot of times, as a procrastinator, I start doing homework late at night, and it's nice to be able to, just go onto the library website and be able to find anything that I need. Or we also have like the 24/7 kind of hotline to ask questions. I think that's great because, sometimes as students, like, we think we know what we're doing or the answer. So like, oh, I can just do it later. And then it ends up that we do need help. So it's nice to know that our library kind of provides a service um, all day round to just kind of help out if needed. I also think just the space of the library is what I enjoy the most as like a service. The 24-hour room, I've been in there till like 3 a.m. at some points, and it's just nice to know that it's always open. Sometimes there are other people, sometimes they're not, but oftentimes my bedroom, gets too distracting. I don't want to do the work. So having the spaces in the library helps a lot.
I love the 24-hour room. When I had a roommate, I was there like all the time until 3 a.m. But for me, I might be a little biased. I work at the research help desk, so I help people with simple research questions and citations and stuff like that. And I think that's a really good resource. And especially the fact that I'm a student, so I kind of bridge the gap between a library and if you need simple help, but people might be, not willing to approach a librarian. I'm like, I'm one of you guys. I get it. Research can be scary. You don't know where to start, and I'm willing to help. And I think that's like a excellent resource. And like, you don't always have to walk up. We have the chat. You can call. So it's like there's multiple avenues for you to receive research help in any capacity. And I think that's very beneficial, especially as you become a junior into your senior year.
So do you all find that your peers know about these resources? Rochelle, you're shaking your head now.
Yeah, no, they don't. I shamelessly plug it in my classes, and people still don't necessarily come. And my professors would be going over like, you guys need to work on AP citation. This is the third assignment. It's still having problems. Like, I work at the research help desk. I can help you with this. And it's like, people, I don't know. I think people just don't want to come. That's really like what it boils down to sometimes. And I don't know. It's really disheartening because research and like knowing how to do citations are like, it's gonna follow you for your entire college career. So it's like very beneficial that you learn how to do it, or at least reach out for help if you're not able to do it correctly. And I think people just don't come.
I would say I think the biggest thing I see is students having a fear to approach faculty and staff when it's outside of like a classroom setting. So for any like places that do have student workers, I would say to kind of make use of them. I know like my favorite is when I'll go like, oh yeah, I work in the Excel office. I do this, this, and this. And they're like, oh, I always walk by there, but I'm too like nervous to go in. And like, I didn't know you worked there. And then they'll end up talking to me for like an hour about the services. And it's like, I have to keep explaining, like, like our whole faculty and staff are here to help. So it's like, you don't have to be nervous to speak to them. But I just feel like, especially newer students, just have a fear of like exploring new places. I know in our library, we have the food pantry in the basement. Because I volunteer down there. So I've had people call me. They're like, are you sure I can go down there? I'm like, yes, like I'm down here. So I think it's just a lot of people have to get past like this fear point of, doing something that's uncomfortable to them until like once they realize like, oh yes, this is helpful, and there was no reason to be afraid.
So on a related note to that, somebody's asking in the Q&A and in the chat, how can librarians make the library less intimidating and ways to ease library anxiety?
Yeah, I mean, like, a lot of times, like our librarians like put up like little coloring like things, like coloring pages, or check out this like small little book, or just something that's um like like I don't know how to describe it, but like stress relief activities, having games out or something like that. I think that would work.
Yeah, I like outside of our Lake Effect Cafe, there's always a picture. And I saw earlier in the chat that it's Morrisville says that they do physical polls or polls on physical whiteboards. And I think honestly that would be something cool to see right as you walk into like the main part of our library. Because I think students would stop for a second, maybe you put a poll and then at the bottom put like a little excerpt about like a service that they should consider that went with the poll or something. So like if you did do the MLA versus APA, and then at the bottom, like, reach out to this person for help with your citations. I think that would help just kind of creating a moment for students to see something.
I think that's like a really good idea. And also at SUNY Oswego, we have library ambassadors and like student workers. And I think if libraries use the student workers, and just probably make them more visible, possibly on like your social media, you can also, and then also reach out to like campus organizations, student orgs to collab. You would be able to meet like peer to peer. And then people might be more willing, oh, I know this person, they work in the library. I can connect them with Deb or another librarian. And that way you're still necessarily networking in a capacity, but it's still professional. And you're still offering the library as a resource, and you're using yourself as an extension of the library.
Also, incentives are free stuff. I've noticed really good students. I know in the office I work in, we give out like stickers. We give out tissues, which has been amazing for flu and allergies and stuff. But it's literally just a little thing of tissues. They're tiny, and it says like the Excel office, and kind of like gives like a brief description of what we offer. And it's funny because you'll see students grab them and be like, oh, okay. And like just get like, I don't know, something as simple as that, like, oh, something free, but then it also has this valuable information on it.
So do you see your library as a place for study and work, or as a place for fun and socializing? And could or should anything be done to change that impression?
I can go. I see the library as a place to work, and I think that's fine. You can have other areas on campus that's more for fun activities, but I like the fact that in the library at SUNY Oswego we have a designated quiet study floor, and then if you want to do like group work and collaborative stuff, you can use a different floor. I like that, but I don't want the library to turn into a place where it's always like something super distracting happening. So I think, I don't know, I think it's fine. I like how it is. I see it as a place for like work and serious stuff. So I think, yeah.
I would see it a little bit as both. Between my classes, like when I have breaks, I'll go to the cafe or I'll go sit somewhere in the library, whether it's for a meeting too, virtually. And I see that for work, but I also see the library as a great opportunity to socialize because there are so many students in the library that go. Or I know myself, we do something called Woke Wednesdays, where we go at like 8 p.m. and we stay to like, as late as possible. My friends can make it to like 8 a.m. I'm out by 1 a.m. But that's just a great time to see, everyone's there, everyone has homework, but we're all kind of like bonding in that way. And I know as also a transfer student, when I first transferred here last spring, which the campus wasn't fully open yet, it was very hard for me to make friends. And it was the library that kind of like sparked where I met most of my friends, because we're just, expressing the same things together, like the cafe or the classes we took or being new. So the library kind of provides a little bit of both, like a studied structure space, but also a social space.
Yeah, I agree with having multiple floors. Like one floor is like group projects and you can like interact with friends, and the other floors are like a quiet space. And you get both a group of both worlds. You can like switch between both. So I agree with what's being said.
So Jaylee, I have a follow-up question to your 24-hour room use. And this is because we are, in the process of thinking about new furniture, but I think this will be a useful question for other people as well, in terms of how the students are using the space, just physically. You mentioned, I think I remember you saying something about people pushing tables together. So do students like to work at those big long tables, or is it more, sectioned off?
Yeah, I think it depends. I love that there's so many tables in there because there are multiple friend groups. So like sometimes we'll organize and they'll be like, okay, we'll take these 2 tables. I'm like, okay, we'll take these 3 because we have more people. But we definitely like moving stuff around. I believe I haven't gone in a couple Wednesdays because I've been getting my homework done. But a couple weeks ago, we were in the process. Our group was like ordering pizza, and we went over to the other people and like, hey, do you want to order pizza too? They drop it right off at the library. It's like 10 at night. But I just think that having the ability to move things around and also just like such an open space, we love the open concept because we can all kind of see each other. I think that's what we like the most about the 24-hour room.
So the movable furniture is important, the ability to adapt. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
So are there any services that you would like to see at the library that don't currently exist?
I don't think so. I think there's a lot of services, but personally at our library, we have the writing center, there's shop. I think Title IX office is now in the library also. We have the 24-hour room. I don't think so. I like stuff separated, so I might just be an anomaly, but I think I like how the library is set up right now. The only thing I would probably ask for is like more co-working spaces that probably doesn't necessarily need to be that you don't need a reservation for in advance, because sometimes the cubicles are already booked up. So that's probably like my only grievance. I believe it's the cubicles that have, I may be wrong because I haven't been in one in like a couple weeks, but the whiteboards, I would think if the 24-hour room had either like the whiteboard tables or like a big whiteboard off to the side, that would be great because there are many groups that go in the 24-hour room. So if they had the capability to, draw out their plan quick or, just that resource in general, even if no one uses it, I think just having it there would help a lot because sometimes when the actual library is closed, that's where the whiteboards are and there's none in the 24-hour room.
Anna, what about you in your library?
Yeah, I know it's not really our stuff, but like keeping our library open again for 24 hours because it was 24 hours in my freshman year, and a lot of people have come up to us and said, "Oh, when will 24 hours come back?" And I'm just saying I'm not sure when it will come back. So like, I know our staff are already working on extending hours, but like getting the funds to open 24 hours again for students, I think would be great, like in the future years.
We have a follow-up question about social media. Somebody's asking about ideas to grow the library Instagram followers.
I am sort of in the process of that, and I plan on helping before I graduate this May with the Penfield Library Instagram. But it's kind of just, I don't want to say a cheating option, but we tend, for when I work in the Excel office, because I run that Instagram too, we tend to go to the student organization pages and see, who they follow, like what students they follow and what students are following them. And if we're not currently following them, we follow them too. We're completely fine with our following list being way larger than our following or followers list, just because it gives a second. Not a lot of students know that campus departments or the library have Instagram pages. So when you just start immediately following a bunch of students, and then let's say 5 follow you back, and then 2 end up sharing something from your for a post or a story, that just kind of starts to create the process. It's an ongoing process because some Instagram users are very picky about who they will let follow and follow them. But I would just say make the effort to follow as many students as possible that you can find on other student organization pages.
Yeah, I also run PR for rugby at Oswego on their Instagram. And I would say, don't be afraid to follow first. Like, especially like, there's like the incoming freshman year. You can follow those pages and then follow who they follow seniors. But also you don't just want your following list to go up, you want engagement to go up. So what I would say is like, follow the library, meet with a librarian, and then give them like something in return for it. Because you can have a lot of followers and no one is really engaging with your content or with your resource. So find a way to like get what you want and give them something they'd want also.
Going off of the question in the chat, I don't think it would freak students out to have the library follow them. I honestly kind of like smile when I'm like, if I check my phone in class or even at home and I'll see like a different campus department follow me back. And I prefer to be followed back. Like if I follow, I don't know, we have career services. I think career service, I don't think they followed me back at first. And my friend runs the Instagram and I was like, follow me back. Like I want to follow. So I honestly think I would like laugh or like smile if the library followed me and then I followed them back. And that goes for any like campus departments. We have something called like Oz Apparel that recently just started following a bunch of students. And I think students just like to be included or like, hey, they noticed me. So I think that helps a lot.
Along with like working with other offices, so I know a lot of offices like to repost on their stories about like what else is around campus. So like as like they like to tell like post like, oh, make sure you check this out here, or, like they're doing this here. So like interacting with those other offices is a good advantage to like get more engagement and followers.
I know a big thing is what I would recommend is doing you can put up like a flyer that says, like follow us at, and then it's like if you post a picture of you in a space in the library and tag us, then say like Penfield Library could repost it. And like if you wanted to add an incentive, you could, or it's just the coolness of being reposted on the library page. So I know like, I believe our dining hall did that actually. Oz Dining was like, follow us on Instagram, post a picture in the dining hall and like win a gift card or be entered for a raffle to a gift card. And so many students were doing it because it's like free stuff, free repost, and just being a part of something.
Yeah, I have one last point on like the social media stuff. This is like a cheat code. So if you mention the school, your school's Instagram is gonna repost it, and you're gonna meet like students and parents that follow it also. So you can put like a tiny SUNY Oswego and like hide it behind a sticker, and then you get the mention. And you could also use the hashtag and like hide it in a post behind something, and then you get your name out there. And SUNY Oswego's Instagram can repost it, and then other orgs can see it and repost it also. So yeah.
In addition, sorry.
You go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So like in addition, you can also like offer clubs to have their events in the library. They'll be like, oh, we're having this event in the library, come check us out. So that also gives you that more engagement of people to come into the library and more likely to ask more questions, stuff like that.
Yeah, that was a really great recommendation. The organization I run, we actually did that, and it was funny to see how many of our members came in and not even knowing that like there was a classroom on the second floor of the library, because we said like, oh, come to Penfield 215, and I'm getting text messages from my members like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, come upstairs, like you can see there's more upstairs. And now it's cool to see them, they'll say like, oh, I'm back at the library, or when can we go back to the room? And I'm like, oh, whenever, like I think we're also planning a final study hall with our student organization at the library.
So there was one other question in the Q&A that I don't want to get lost in the shuffle. And this one was for Rochelle. Somebody was asking, did you find positive or negative things when you transferred from one campus to another? And what surprised you?
I came from a community college and so I was a commuter student there. So this was my first time living on campus and being away from home. So for me, I had to build a whole new community here and really put myself out there to find my tribe. So for me, my biggest problem with my first community college was that I felt like there was not enough resources, and I felt like I personally had to do too much digging to find out what the campus offered. And the switch when I came to SUNY Oswego, it was almost like the orgs were begging students to come, like, please use our resources, please do this. And I really enjoyed it. And I take full advantage of like career services, the library, shop, which is like, I think for food and stuff like that we have. So that's just one of my one thing that I like most about coming to transitioning to this campus was the amount of resources and like the ability to find a community, find good advisement and stuff like that.
Jaylee, I know you were a transfer student too. Do you have anything to add to that?
I would say essentially the same. The community college I went to, I knew or I had heard that there were clubs, but I didn't know how to get involved. So I was also a commuter at my other school. So, once no one kind of reached out or wanted to do anything, I would just drive back home. And I was just going to the campus, coming home. But with SUNY Oswego, it was like we had the involvement fair. There's also just tabling in like the main hall of Marano Campus Center. Even to this day, I'll see new stuff. And I'm like, oh, I like had no idea. There's just so much that sometimes not even everyone can put all their information out there. But that's definitely what got me involved in this campus, because when I first came here, I was really nervous that I wasn't going to have friends. I just watched a lot of like Netflix in my dorm room. And then eventually as like the weather got better, because, Oswego can be terrible in the cold. You see more things being posted and more organizations practically begging you to get involved. And that was the nicest part about being here. And now I'm involved in a lot of stuff, and it's been great.
So Anna, were you a traditional student coming right from high school? So what surprised you when you came to campus about the library or just about college?
Yeah, so something that I didn't really surprise me, I kind of expected it, like the staff and faculty were like really like willing to listen to you for your concerns of like, oh, I really need help with this. This is my first year in college. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to look for. So like having the faculty and staff being willing to listen to you when you're concerned and help you, I thought was really cool.
So I'm interested to hear from all three of you on what aspects of college life have changed you in some way from when you first entered as a freshman or when you came as a transfer. How do you feel like you've changed?
I think for me, I was I wouldn't say shy. I don't mind talking and like putting myself out there. But for me, one thing that I had to do was learn to advocate for myself. You're here on college, you need to have your best interest at heart at all times. If you don't like a grade, if you need help, if you're struggling, reach out to someone or anybody, because you can ask a professor, a librarian, and they would also know resources to offer you like if you need help. So for me, I would submit an assignment, get a butt awful grade, and then say nothing. I'll just take the grade and be like, okay, well, it happened. But now you can reach out to professors. Where did I go wrong? Like, what exactly am I not getting? You can go to the writing center and say, this is where I messed up. How can you help me? And I think that's one thing that has changed drastically for me. Like, I would advocate for myself. I'm my biggest like cheerleader any and everywhere. And I think that's something that everyone needs to be willing to do, and to just always put your best foot forward so that when people meet you, you can share about yourself and it's honest and true.
I really like that. Yeah, I would agree. Um, I came to SUNY Oswego, with my plan to graduate early. I got out of high school and I was like, I hated high school. I was like, I'm leaving college early too. So I was quiet. I always just did my work. And then it was with, meeting friends at the library and then eventually securing an internship last semester that I really started to see myself grow and to see all the possibilities of the faculty and staff that want to help. In the office I work in, I interact with all other campus departments. So now it's like, it's fun because I'll walk across campus and I'm like, I'm saying hi to my students, but then I'm saying hi to like, people that other students don't even know because I work in these back offices. And I've just seen myself grow a lot. I'm definitely more outgoing. I get involved, um, hosting events, attending events. And I've definitely learned that, to cherish the moments that you make with the people here. Grades used to be everything, and I would give up, seeing people because I'm like, no, I want to get 3 weeks ahead and I want the best grades. And now it's like I'm okay going at the rate that I'm supposed to go, and also making time to, see people and to celebrate the little victories that we all experience. And even though I'm graduating early, I said to Deb the other day, like, I wish I would have not gone ahead so fast so I could stay the year that I'm supposed to. But SUNY Oswego just kind of made me become who I am, I guess. And I'm excited for the future.
Yeah, well, I was very shy when I first came to college. So I didn't really know anybody. And like I think the library like helped me build like my best friends that I can say are now my best friends that I've been working with them for so long. So like helped me build my social interactions with like other people. And like I also chose Ithaca for the media program and going abroad. And because of COVID, to help me up a little bit and knowing like, oh, I still can do it, even though I'm like becoming a senior, being able to still have those resources and ability to travel, which I think was pretty cool.
So what do you think the library can do to better support students in their success, but also in getting where you've all expressed that you are now? How can we support students to get there and to feel connected to the college and to the library and the resources? What else can we do?
I would say just keep trying to appeal to this kind of Gen Z audience. I'm actually doing research on it, but I found that students are more likely to engage when the materials or kind of like the interactions are being more, I guess, less informal. Um, I know I can't remember which campus department, but I like made a meme and then like everyone started liking the meme because it's like, oh, that's funny. Like that's our humor. And just, not always having to be so professional because sometimes even with myself, because I work in the office, I'll have students email me or ask me a question and it's very professional and like spoken really well. I'm like, that's amazing. But please don't feel intimidated by me or think that you have to speak to me that way because at the end of the day, like, we are just humans. Communication has changed a lot, especially with social media and speaking wise. So just kind of appealing to that, like, just the youth and the way we speak and the way we interact.
Yeah, going off of what you said, like the way that we use social media, our generation, I would say for libraries to remember that our generation, our first point of contact with any org is social media. We are going to check first your Instagram and see what it's like. So when you're posting, you're appealing to us or like faculty and things like that. But we're not necessarily going to say, oh, let me check SUNY Oswego's website. It's more we would check your Instagram first and then we'd go from there. So I would say plug the resources on Instagram and then get people to come that way. Or also have people like library ambassadors or, students that you've built a relationship with in your individual libraries to go to classes and probably do like a 5-minute presentation about services in the library, what they do in the library. And that might help. And then you'd realize, oh, Rochelle's in my class. She also works in the library. Maybe she can help with this. And then that way people can see, make that connection and you're also reaching the body that you want to reach.
Yeah, I agree with all that. And like also like promote as much as you can, either if it's putting up flyers or putting up posts. I think that's one major thing that should be done.
I forgot who said it out of the two of you earlier, but inviting organizations into the library. I think that's one of the smartest things you can do, because a lot of times on the organization flyers, they put the location. And then that's where students start to show up. So if you have an organization that you're like, hey, throw it in the library, we'll help or we'll provide something, then it's like, then you have this organization like Black Student Union that brings in 30 kids almost every event that they host or every little meeting that they host. And it's like, so now you've got 30 new kids coming to library. Say only 12 had been to the library. Now you have this another section of students that are coming, and then we'll go tell their other friends. And a lot of our organizations touch on a lot of important topics, especially like Go Green, which is climate change. And the library can interact like, hey, have your event here. Also, we have these book recommendations or these, peer-reviewed journal recommendations that kind of go with your information if anyone's interested.
I like that. I think you make an important point. How do you feel about building partners sort of going along with that in terms of, so Penfield Library has the Office of Learning Services, we have EOP, we have I'm trying to think what else we have down in our basement, we have the pantry. How do you feel about those? Do you think that's a good idea to have that blend of spaces or the shared spaces like that?
I've only personally, I believe, been like in the shop area. I see the other areas, but I don't think they necessarily go for myself, but I do see, or I'll walk with a friend there and they're like, oh, okay, hold on, I gotta go in this room real quick. But I think just having them there is nice, because as students kind of walk through the library to get to those places, like we spoke about the other day, they will see the resources, the books, or the new stuff that the library puts out. So it's kind of just like having like two good things. So like it's one area is helping the student, but also even though a student might not like fully recognize it, there's also other things around them that kind of influence them.
Yeah, at the front entrance of our library, we have an art gallery. So like a lot of times I see people like walk in at the entrance and like, oh, we have an art gallery. I'm gonna go check this out, and then I'm gonna go to work, or vice versa. So like having that additional space to also have other people get more interactions with their organizations or locations, I think it's a good collaborative effort.
I think I like having the library have other resources in it, because it doesn't make the library like such a strict and like narrow area. So that way it's like, okay, if you come with a research problem and they also have a writing problem, the writing center and tutors are there, and it kind of goes hand in hand. EOP is like student success. I think it works. It's collaborative and it works. So I think I like that there are different offices in the library.
So I guess at this point, I think I've run through most of the questions that I sent you all, which was a lot of questions. So thank you. That was amazing to hear all of your perspectives on that. I think we have a few minutes if anyone wants to drop some questions in the, who's observing right now, if anyone wants to drop some questions in the Q&A, we have time to ask our students a few additional questions. So feel free to do that right now. Okay, so I see one in here that says, what does student success mean to you?
I would answer. For me, I think student success has to be like interdisciplinary, in the sense that you don't always need like to have a 4.0 GPA to be successful at school. I think it's important for you to like diversify your portfolio. You get involved in student orgs that you're passionate about. You can get involved in honor society and sororities. And that is going to help you network, meet people that you probably would not meet, form connections that when you get into the professional world, it's important. So I would say student success is really like a collaborative effort, to the point that when you leave college, you should be all-rounded, in the sense that you have a good enough GPA to show that you were successful academically, but also that you can work in teams, you enjoy teamwork and like other skills that you would need in a workplace.
I agree. I think that's an amazing answer. And it kind of went with what I said earlier. Like I used to be all focused on grades, but I don't think the job that I've secured now for after graduation, I would have even been considered for if it weren't for, the career fairs that I attended, the organizations that I'm a part of, or just the things that I've experienced. Many of my skills that I've developed now came from who I've interacted with on this campus and what I've learned. Um, so yeah, I definitely think student success comes from, what you do as a person that's more than just grade wise. Because you can be the smartest person in class, but like if you don't have those social skills, I feel like that's very important. Um, and I think SUNY Oswego does a great job of advertising all the social aspects of things to attend, whether it is the career fair just to meet people quickly, or we have an on-campus internship expo that we just tell students, show up just to learn like what on-campus departments, like what internships they offer, what services they have, and just kind of getting students into these broader spaces of connecting with each other.
Yeah, I agree. What I've been told a lot of times from my professors is that it's not that your GPA that recruiters will look at, it'll be your resume that you've built up from organizations or your connections. So like definitely like join those organizations, meet new people, make those connections. That's a good way to build your career after college, or what you want to do when you like what you want to do in the future.
Okay, great. So there's another one here. What sort of non-gift card or monetary prizes would be of interest to you?
Probably like sticky notes or like pens or something like that. Because I know sticky notes are a big useful tool for like when reading and like taking notes on stuff like that. So like sticky notes for me personally.
Maybe you can get professors to offer like extra credit on an assignment if you work with professors. So if you come to the library, you can get like extra 5 points, or it can go towards your participation or attendance. That's like non-gift card. And also maybe like pizza or food. I think that's just a good way to get anyone to come in. And then once they take your pizza, you can ask them a question and you can pick their brains. So it's a fair exchange.
Yeah, I would definitely say like even stuff you can buy in bulk. Like I know we put out like bracelets at one point and hair ties, and people were like freaking out. And it's like it's just a little hair tie, and they're like, oh, I know, but sometimes I forget to grab one, or just people like wearing them on their wrist. Anything food wise, even if you like bulk buy like goldfish or granola bars and you give like an assortment. Definitely think of dietary issues though, but then put out like a thing of them. And then it's like, oh, if you complete this survey or you do this, like, yeah, you get a granola bar. And it's like any college student will take any type of free food or free items. So just as long as you offer it. I know me, I got, I think, a t-shirt last week, a sticker, a bracelet, all from different tables in Morano Campus Center. Because I was like, if it's free, I'm taking it. I got a free shirt, and it took me like 2 seconds to do a survey.
Yeah, also like small little accessories like that is like really great. Also, like if you have like a cafe in your library, you can do like one of those hole punch cards, or like that will lead you up to like a free sandwich or free drink from like the cafe. So I think that one also will be really helpful.
Okay, these are all good suggestions. I'm sure everyone listening is writing this stuff down. Another question, do you folks have a favorite database you access from the library? Rochelle,
No, I don't think I have a favorite one. If anything, it would have to be ones that's related to my major. So communication something or public relations. That would probably be a favorite one if I had to pick, but I don't think I have a favorite one, no.
I don't think I have a favorite one. I just used our broad search thing where I literally just type in the title and then it like brings up everything, like the peer reviewed journals and the databases. Um, I don't know, like academic one file, I think I always end up using the most because that's like the first result usually. Um, but no, I guess I don't really look necessarily at the databases too much because our system has such a great setup of displaying like the titles and leading you straight to it, and giving you the citations, that I guess I don't, now that I think about it, I don't really notice that I'm not looking at the databases.
all right, Carol, I see you're unmuted. Are we at time yet?
No, I just saw a question that I'm not sure got answered in chat. It came in a little while ago.
Okay.
What innovative things have you seen your professors do to make classes stand out for you that you loved?
I can answer. I have a professor that gives an extra flex deadline. So if something is due to on the 14th, you have 7 extra days to bring it in without any penalty to your grade. And I think that's really well received. And I've seen other public relation professors kind of adopt that idea that if you submit something a couple days late, you don't need documentation. You're allowed to still get your grade because life happens. You know, you can be tired. So I think that's fun. And I have a professor that it's a professional development assignment, and you get points for like serving on an executive board, working in a campus organization. So she rewards you. You just have to write like 2 pages on what you do, but that rewards you for like outside of the classroom work, and you can start to see how your skills can transfer that you're learning or doing in different departments back to your career. And I think it's a fun and it's an easy assignment. Everyone likes writing about themselves, and it's like a simple completion based assignment. So yeah.
I don't know if I guess it would fall under innovative, but I've noticed that in a couple of my classes, when the professors take like 5 minutes out of the beginning to genuinely ask how we're feeling or what we're dealing with before the class starts. So I know one class the other day, we're all like, we're struggling, like you're hitting spring fever, you're hitting just a point where it's like, this is starting to feel like a lot because everything's picked up a pace. And the professor genuinely asked at the beginning, listened to like all of us. And then by the end, when they were going on to explain like the deadline of being like 2 days to like, well, after we've listened to you, she ended up saying like, oh, I'll extend the deadline for like another, I think till Monday next week or Tuesday next week. And it's just like, putting in the effort that you're actually listening to us, I think shows the most like support, that it's not like you didn't just listen and be like, oh, well, that stinks. Yeah, anyways, tomorrow at midnight, this is due. But actually extending it has helped a lot. And just being willing to listen, or sometimes we'll watch like, a 10-second clip. I think we watched Saturday Night Live the other day. It was like one skit from that. And it's like, it made our professor laugh. And she was like, oh, I think this will make you laugh, and just kind of brighten up the day a little. And it did for most of us. So just kind of not always being direct with all the, we got to learn. It's like, let's take a second to connect.
Yeah, I know for one of my professors, he doesn't like the effect deadlines have on students. So what he does is that he has all of our assignments and projects and tests due by the last day of the semester. But he has suggested deadlines, so you get extra credit if you turn them in by that deadline. So like making it flexible for students and not having those strict deadlines, like to have a lot of stress on us, I think that's like helpful for us.
Another question in chat is, when we need to deliver tough messages to students, what is the best way to approach a student individually or in groups? And there was a follow-up to that, just approaching groups of students in the library who are being too noisy.
I mean, like going up to them and be like, hi, we understand that you're having a fun time in this group, but we have some students trying to get their work done. We have this on the first floor, we have an interactive space where you can meet with those groups. So can you please go down there? We would really appreciate it. Just not being like angry or being very like strict. Like just be like really kind and like have a soft tone to them that will like ease the conversation instead of raising it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you can probably use flyers as reminders. This is a quiet study. This is a quiet space. If you need to do group work, you can go on a different floor or a different area or something. I would say if you can use social media to like remind people the different areas or what you have in the library, but I think you still want them to use the library. So it's a tough balance, I guess.
I think when so say like there were a group of students like laughing and talking about something really loud. I think going over and approaching them like, hey, like, if you're allowed to get in the conversation, like, what are you laughing about? Say it was something like the day after what happened with, I believe it was the Oscars and, the whole slap and everyone was talking about it. And it's like, if you knew what had happened, like chime in a little bit and be like, oh, this is great. But our third floor, whatever floor within the library, this is the best one for, these conversations or these moments. And it's like, we would really appreciate it if you would want to move your group up there so that the students on the quiet floor can focus.
Okay, we have one last question for you. We're taking it right to the top of the hour because this has been so interesting. Do you find that concerns about the future distract you from focusing on being a student, like debt, environment, career concerns, and how can we help you face these issues?
As a senior, I would say yes, just because, with graduation then comes the student loans. And I recently took a new job and signed a lease on a new apartment, which comes with a lot of, it's the fear. It's like, oh, when I get this new job, like I definitely can't miss work because I need all this to pay my bills. And I just think or especially for the seniors now that are applying to jobs or stressed. I had someone ask me yesterday, oh my God, like I think my professor's gonna be mad, but I have a job interview like at the beginning of the class time. Like, do you think they'll mind or will they let me come late? And I know for my professors personally, I think I missed parts of classes to attend these job interviews, which I've thanked them a lot because I ended up receiving a job and just kind of, being understandable and willing to, kind of cater to what they need. Like if in that moment, like, they feel like that job interview is important, allow them to take that interview because at the end of the day, everyone is freaking out about the next step of what comes after college. So just kind of being understanding. I've had professors, I'll tell them like the day before I have the interview and they'll message me that morning, be like, good luck, like, please don't worry, we'll catch you up on everything you need to know. So just kind of finding ways to ease that stress a little bit definitely helps.
Yeah, for me, concerns about the future don't necessarily distract me from school because the debt is gonna be here today, tomorrow, and next year. So that's just me. But I mean, if you have like maybe financial aid or like how to start debt snow pile or like maybe like little pamphlets about global warming, or if you want to do like a book recommendation about climate change or something like that to show that there's information about it. So it kind of offers as a way to comfort them. But stuff like that doesn't really distract me, no.
Also being like, I'm a rising senior, so like maybe like offering like events, like having financial services or someone from like the senior office or someone coming in to talk to seniors or some students about those kind of situations, I think would be really helpful.
Thank you all so much. It was so interesting to learn from you and to hear your perspectives. I really appreciate it. It was a fun conversation for me too. So I'm sure everyone else learned a lot as well. And I think we are at time.
We are, yeah. Thanks everyone for joining us for this morning session, and a special thank you to our student panelists. As everybody has said in the chat, we really appreciate your thoughtful responses, and this was so helpful.